Tip 1 is invest early. If I play an upgrade or support on turn 1, I then get its benefit for every single turn throughout the game. In general, upgrades and supports are fantastic early game plays. If you're under pressure, you might need to balance it out. I'll play one upgrade and maybe one ally or event, but you'll kind of learn how to balance it over time. But long story short, you should be prioritizing playing supports and upgrades turn 1 in most circumstances on most characters. Tip number 2 is dig for treasure. How do you get these good upgrades and supports on turn 1, you ask? You mulligan. So in Marvel Champions, most characters in Ultra Ego have a hand size of 6. You start the game drawing up to that hand size, so 6 cards in hand. What if you don't have a good upgrade or support? You have the option to mulligan. You can discard as many as you'd like and then redraw those cards up to your hand size. So if I have 6 cards and I don't like any of them, I might just get rid of all of them and draw 6 new ones. Obviously, if you've got a really good opening hand and you've got like your best upgrade and you can afford it and everything works out, great, don't worry about it. But if you've got nothing good, just go for it, ditch everything. Even if you don't find what you're looking for, it's still really, really good. Because rather than be 6 cards for your deck, you're now 12 cards for your deck. And that means, let's say, this hand still doesn't have any good upgrades or supports. Well, now your next one probably will, because you dug further down. Whenever you do find those good cards, you will find them a turn quicker because you mulliganed so aggressively. Now, I don't always think you should just discard all 6 cards if you don't find the upgrades or supports you're looking for on turn 1. You can just do a 5-card mulligan. Keep whatever your best option is in your opening hand, and then try and dig for even better with the other 5 cards. That's really good as well. That's probably the most common amount I would say I do, although it does vary. Because again, a 4-card mulligan can be good. Keep your 2 best options instead of your 1 best option, and then just go for it. Or maybe you've got a good option and a double resource. That can be nice to get a really kind of a efficient start to the game. That's really good. Other good cards to keep early on is maybe an ally like Nick Fury. Anything with a lot of card draw is really good. Moon Girl is another example. Nick Fury, he can be full of almost like an extra mulligan. Go for it, be brave, and even if you don't reap the rewards on that immediate turn, you might on the next turn because you'll be that much closer to the treasure. Step 3, the doors close at 8 PM. What does this mean? Well, we talked in the first step about how it's really good to play upgrades and supports on turn 1 to get value every single turn. But if we're near the end of the game, what's the point of playing these upgrades and supports? Some of them might still be good, but let's take Avengers Mansion again as our example here. It's a 4-cost support. If I don't have resource generators out, I'm basically spending 4 cards from my hand on it, but then it is on the board as well. So it's 5 cards gone to get Avengers Mansion down on the board. But then if the game ends in 2 turns, I might only get a couple of cards from it. Maybe on the next turn, if I can win without spending my whole hand of cards, did the extra card from Avengers Mansion even matter? This is an extreme example, but long story short, as upgrades and supports are more valuable early on, they are less valuable later on. And if an upgrade or support, even if you really wanted it, turns up too late, you've got to close the doors on it. You've got to say, no, it's too late for this. I'm going to keep going with, quicker, more immediate returns on value and close the game out that way. You will find it works out really well most of the time. Before we continue the video, I want just 30 seconds of your time. Ultra Ego Chronicle is an amazing blog written by Astrodar/Infinite Square Whale, and as soon as I wanted to make a gameplay tips video, the first thing that came to mind was their article on gameplay tips. It is really, really well written, it's full of good advice, and since I'm trying to give out good advice, some of the points here are going to be very, very similar. So if you want more of this, once you finish the video, check out the link down below and make sure you give it a look. It's really, really good. And I also quickly want to shout out Into the AM. It's a fantastic clothing brand. We've got an code here, VTheory. You can click the link down below and you'll get a discount on any of the amazing stuff. Maybe you're looking for some new t-shirts for summer, anything like that. And you get a discount. I get a little bit back as well. It helps support the channel because this is, as I said in recent videos, Marvel Champions is a niche within a niche. So we're all just doing this for fun, but every little kind of bit of assistance really, really goes a long way. So thank you so much, and let's get back to the tips. Tip number 4, your cash is on fire. If you don't spend it, you lose the value. And what I mean by that is you could think of every card in your hand as a $10 bill. And let's say you've got a 5-card hand size, that's $50. If you end up with a card left in your hand, because every card is a resource in this game, you basically haven't spent 20% of what you could have spent. You basically have $10 of your $50 left over, and it goes to waste. Because at the end of the turn, you replenish your entire hand up to your hand size. So keeping a card around doesn't give you any sort of monetary benefit compared to, say, other games where you just draw a card every turn, no matter what. This isn't like that, and there can be benefits to keeping a card if it's particularly good for some given reason. Maybe it's a defense card that's really efficient. Spider-Man's backflip is a really good example. If you know the villain phase is coming up and you're going to be attacked, then keeping this card around isn't the worst idea in the world. But for the most part, you want to try and spend every card you have in your hand every single turn so you don't lose any value. You want to be making decisions in the game and even deck building toward being able to play your entire hand every turn. One turn a game, maybe you keep something left over, not too bad. If it's happening 2, 3, even 4 times that you're keeping cards left over for some reason, then you're just losing out on so much value. So try not to do that, because if you don't use it, it will burn. And not kind of in the way of Deadpool's card, but just in the way that you will have wasted the value. And yeah, it's not great. Tip number 5, a Jedi must not form attachments. Generally, if you do end up with a card left in your hand, you should be discarding it at the end of your turn and drawing an entirely new hand. This means you're moving faster through your deck, you're digging deeper toward the other treasure in there, you're just getting new options. If you didn't manage to play that card the previous turn, are you going to play it this turn? There are exceptions, but I think as a new player, especially if you've played other card games, you will be tempted to keep hold of cards, and most of the time this will be the wrong choice. The times where you do regret it, the lessons learned there will be worth it compared to keeping hold of too many cards and suffering, in all these different games all the time. And in Marvel Champions, things move fast. You will burn through your deck again. Those good cards will come back around, but there are also encounter cards which can make you discard upgrades and supports, things like that. Long story short, don't keep cards at the end of your turn in most cases. Tip number 6, find your value. Not all cards are created equal. Some cards will just get you more value for the money you put into them compared to another one of the same cost. And even if there's different costs, you can kind of scale it. And generally, some cards are just more powerful. It's just the way it works. Even within your signature kit, some cards are going to be worse than others. Some are going to be stronger than others. So it's kind of something you'll develop over time and maybe understanding of the game to see which cards are more valuable, and especially at certain points in the game and so on. But it is a good idea to look at your hand and figure out what you think is the best, what is the most valuable, and you should kind of strive to play that. But there is a caveat here. You shouldn't just look at your hand to figure out what's most efficient or powerful and do that blindly. Let's get on to the next tip. Tip number 7 is to look before you leap. And this is basically saying, yes, you can look at your hand and just pick out the best cards and play them, but if you just play these really good cards, you can still lose because they might not be doing what you need them to do. Let's say the main scheme goes up to 7 threat, and if it goes up to 7 threat, you lose. Well, if it's a 6 out of 7 threat, and you just have this really good attack card in hand, you really want to play it, and you play it, great, but as soon as the villain phase rolls around, that threat is going to go up, and you've lost the game. And that's maybe a very obvious example, but you'd be amazed at the times, I'll see people playing, and they will just play a bunch of good stuff and then realize, oh, I should have absolutely done this instead. I needed to do this and I could see this coming and I didn't do it. So look at what you need to do before you do what you want to do. And yes, it's a card game. There's some randomness with boost effects and what the encounter card will be, but there will be an encounter card. There will be a villain activation. They will add threat to the main scheme first. You can kind of account for these things and try and play around them and make sure things are going to be safe. And from the previous round, make sure those things are dealt with. And that kind of takes us on to our next tip. Tip number 8, control is king. So yes, you can just play that swinging web kick on turn 1, get a big chunk of 8 damage on the villain, and that will feel really good. But it won't defeat the villain. And what if there's a minion out already, and maybe a side scheme? And now, because you've left the side scheme around, maybe something else bad is happening in the encounter phase as well, things can start to snowball against you. And yes, you can push the villain down quicker, but you will suddenly have a board that's completely flooded. Maybe a guard minion with tough will come out, and suddenly, yeah, the villain might be almost defeated, but you'll be defeated instead. Long story short here is that while there are exceptions, control is king. Keeping the board nice and clear, taking control of the game yourself is going to be the best strategy in probably 9 out of 10, if not more, circumstances. It's always something to strive for. Certain villains that are really difficult, you can't kind of hold out for forever. You kind of do need to move fast. The Mojo Mania scenarios really encourage you to go faster. And rush decks are completely valid, and that is a completely valid way to play the game. Just going for damage, you can build for that, and that's okay. But for the most part, you're going to want to keep things clear. Tip number 9 is kill your darlings. This is a phrase kind of from writing which says, even if you've done a really good bit of writing here, if it doesn't serve the overall story that you're trying to tell, you have to get rid of it, even if you love it. And I think this even kind of goes for most creative things. And this kind of goes for Marvel Champions as well. Sometimes you'll be aiming for something or have something really good out, and you'll be a bit too attached to it when you need to be ruthless and just get rid of it. let's say the villain's attacking you and you've got maybe 4 health left, the villain has 2 attack. If there's a 2 boost card, you'll be defeated. But if there's a 1 boost card, maybe you won't. Maybe you want to take that risk and let it hit you. But generally, this is a bad idea. Generally, even if you don't want to block with the ally you have out, maybe it's a really good ally, maybe you put tons and tons of upgrades onto it like Yondu, it's better to sacrifice that really, really good ally and just make sure you live than risk losing, because you can lose something really good and still progress, but if you've lost, you've lost. That's the same for maybe flipping down to Alter Ego. You might not want to go Alter Ego because you think you'll lose the main scheme and go on to the next main scheme, and you don't want to do that. But the risk is take that attack and you're defeated. Really, the moral of this video is turning out to be that you can't win if you've already lost and nothing is sacred. Don't keep the upgrade you kept the turn before and still didn't play, get rid of it. Don't hesitate to block with an ally, even if you really like the ally, if you could otherwise lose the game. Tip number 10, finish your food. So my final point here really is that it's better to finish off one target than damage a couple of targets. This goes for minions, which are kind of what the examples are kind of on screen of these apples, but it also goes for side schemes. Let's say we've got minions out here, one has 3 attack, one has 2 attack. You can't quite finish off the one with 3 attack, maybe I'll put some damage on the one with 2 attack. What happens then is when the villain phase rolls around, you're going to get attacked for 3 and you're going to get attacked for 2 because you left both minions out. Maybe, let's say you can finish off the 3 attack minion, but if you put all that damage on the 2 attack minion, you could have finished it off. You probably should have, because yes, that 3 attack minion is still going to be there. When the villain phase happens, you'll take that 3 damage, but you won't take the 2 damage. Thinning out these small enemies or just whatever enemy you can manage is going to be good. If you've got 2 side schemes with, let's say, both have acceleration tokens, rather than take both the half threat, maybe take all the threat off of one. So then when the villain phase rolls around, instead of getting 2 extra threat, you're getting 1 extra threat. I feel like this is pretty self-explanatory, but it's something that I think if you're not familiar with the genre or, certain gaming, things in general, you might not think about. You might just think, I don't like this enemy, let's hit this one, can't finish it off, I'll hit the other one. Not a good move. Pick a target, finish it off, and 9 times out of 10, if not more, this will have been the right decision, and you will be glad you did it. And that's all the tips we've got in this video, although I do have a lot more to share. So if you like this video, let me know in the comments. Maybe I'll do a part 2, maybe a part 3. There's a lot we could talk about. This is really scraping the surface in a lot of ways, but hopefully you enjoyed it. Bit of a different video. I've never done a gameplay tips video before, and you guys know what I'm going to say. Like, comment, subscribe. It makes YouTube happy. That makes me happy. It's really helpful for the channel, and I appreciate you guys so much. Up next, we have a few fun things coming up. I have a video with Boom Guy where we're starting a collaborative series I'm really looking forward to. He's from the Winning Hand podcast, which you should definitely check out. We've got Web Warrior Fanatic on the next episode of the podcast coming up in a week or 2, whenever this is released, I'm not quite sure. That's going to be really, really fun. That is on the subject of difficult villains, and I've been playing lots of Ronan, Venom Goblin, Magneto, all in preparation for that. And of course, I've got my Iceman review coming up in the next week or 2 as well. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. If you want to join in the conversation on the Discord, links are below. YouTube memberships, Patreon's open. You can find details around, and yeah, see you guys. Bye.